Hi everyone, this is Cate, and welcome to my hours presentation that I do on awakeningtogether.org each week at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And okay, sorry, for some reason that each week that happens, I lock the mic on and then it somehow flicks off. But anyway, welcome everyone to Hour of Miracles with Cate. And I named this Hour of Miracles because my path to awakening to this beautiful love was through the gentle voice of Jesus in A Course in Miracles. And so the miracle is a shift in perception, and a shift in perception is a shift from fear to love, and perception is something that you are perceiving in your mind. So it may not be what's actually going on, but it's your interpretation of what's going on. And what the Course in Miracles, Jesus, who is in A Course in Miracles, who's the voice, what I would just call the Christ mind that is in all of us. And he's helping us through the workbook and through the text and manual for teachers and the other pamphlets as well. He's doing everything he can. He's written so many words. He's brought down these words in a book to help us shift our minds from fear-based thinking to love-based thinking. And these are the miracles, because what happens is when we shift from fear to love through change of perception, so we may be initially perceiving someone as fearful, we might be scared of them. One of the examples I talk a lot about is my fear of a bully at work. So I asked the Holy Spirit for help with shifting from my fear-based thinking about her. I was terrified of her. And it wasn't actually her that I was terrified. I had made a whole story about her in my mind, which I was completely unaware of. And I had had another bully at another job, and I had been unaware that I was going to find a bully in most workplaces because I had a perception problem. So I was very unworthy in my mind about who I was, which is the ego. The ego is a whole thought system of unworthiness. And so shifting the perception was very difficult. It took a while, it took some time, and I had to work closely with the guidance because, as I've shared many times about this particular instance, but it was such a huge miracle for me. I really, really wanted to leave that job. The ego was saying, you leave this job and you'll be happy. And I was in a study group at that time. And I remember joking one night and saying, well, if I leave this job, I'm just going to find this bully in another place, in another office, because it's coming from my mind. So I had to see that what I was perceiving was incorrect, but it seemed true. It seemed very true. And this is sort of the path with A Course in Miracles. Jesus is saying to us, look, you can't be your own teacher because it's a loop. You're teaching yourself. You're seeing outside of you what is in your mind, and there's no way that you can, there's no gap for the truth to come in because you've got unworthiness. It's seeing unworthiness, it's seeing it show up outside, and you're getting upset and thinking this person needs to be different. They shouldn't be bullying me. And so I worked with the Holy Spirit in helping me shift my perception. And what happened was I started to, once the fear started to drop away from my mind, I started to see that this lady was actually quite fearful herself. Now, I wouldn't have been able to see that before. I was so full of fear. So as my fear started to drop, my heart started to open in compassion for her situation. And I started to feel a lot of love for her. And my shift in perception was that I wanted to do whatever I could to help her. And just ask the Holy Spirit, help me do whatever I can. And so I just started to work with her. I started to not be scared. So anytime I went into her office, I would be friendly. I would be loving. In terms of loving, it's not, she wouldn't have taken kindly for me to walk up and put my arm around her. She would have told me to F off. So what I did was I just started to have a normal relationship with her to start with. And as it happened, I did end up leaving that job before anything could have changed. But it could have actually, had I have stayed there, there's a possibility that we could have had a very close friendship because the fear completely dropped away from my mind. So the miracle is the shift in perception. I was perceiving her as somebody that was upsetting me. I was perceiving her as somebody that should change her ways. I was perceiving her in all different ways. I had lots of judgment, fear, blame. So we're asked to work with the Holy Spirit to shift our perception on every upset that we have. And this is how the miracle is. So the miracle is I'm now extending love to her. I don't have to extend love. I'm naturally extending love. And in the 50 principles of the Course in Miracles, 50 principles of miracles, he says miracles are natural. And miracles are just natural, loving presence to everybody. It's actually, when you look at the 50 principles of miracles, you see how they all join together in a very, very simple, actual summary that we are coming from God's love. We are joining in God's love, and we're extending that love, and our minds are healed of our misperception. So once we're perceiving our brother or sister as separate, we're getting a new... just a moment, I've got a problem with my computer. No, that's all right. I think it's fixed. I hope everyone can still hear me. Had some things flashing across the screen. programs opening all over the place. Yes, H. Celia has said, if it isn't natural, it is coming from the ego, and for sure. And he also says in the course, if you are not asked to perform a miracle, I can never remember exactly the right words for these things. Sometimes they're a bit, I say them in my own way. If you aren't performed a miracle, which is just a natural expression of love, that it hasn't got, that it's okay, because he's got it, he's directing it. So to be unconcerned. And once I started to really understand what the miracles, the principles of the miracles were, was it just allowing the Holy Spirit to help us shift from fear-based thinking, fear, blame, judgment, guilt, which is fear-based thinking, anything that's not love. So when we shift our thinking and we become more open, more loving, less identified with a me, with a body, with a person called Cate, and more joined to God's love in our mind as we do that, we then become the natural expression of this love, which he talks about in the principles. So one follows the other. They're just natural. So that's why it's called an Hour of Miracles with Cate. Now, I just wanted to, I'm going to do my second half. Last week I did the first. I was going to go through the 10 characteristics of God's teachers in the Manual for Teachers in A Course in Miracles. And I only got to the third one, but before I start, I'd just like to read one of the, this came open today and I thought, oh, this is just so gorgeous. This is just so beautiful. I mean, the course is just so lovely. So many people say they open it up and the love just radiates directly. It's like it hits you. The love from the words just hits you in the heart. It's just so beautiful, this deep, perfect love that's bringing us home to love. So it's at number 6, can God be reached directly? God indeed can be reached directly, for there is no distance between him and his Son. His awareness is in everyone's memory, and his word is written on everyone's heart. Yet this awareness and this memory can arise across the threshold of recognition only where all barriers to truth have been removed. In how many is this the case? Here then is the role of God's teachers. They too have not attained the necessary understanding as yet, but they have joined with others. This is what sets them apart from the world, and it is this that enables others to leave the world with them. Alone they are nothing, but in their joining is the power of God. So what I really love about this little section here is just the first sentence. God indeed can be reached directly, for there is no distance between him and his Son. And that's beautiful because we can reach God directly in our minds. And he's just confirming it. And then what he's also saying, he says this awareness and this memory can arise across the threshold of recognition only where all barriers to truth have been removed. So the barriers are the blocks. So the way it works is we've got the ego blocks, which is the fear in our mind. So he's asking us to bring each fear, each blame, each judgment, each upset, he's asking us to bring to the Holy Spirit. However we do that, whether we do a process on it, whether we just get quiet, whether we journal about it, everybody does it differently, but what it is he just asks us to be willing. He just says, are you willing to give this upset to me? If you hand it over to me and just get quiet and do a surrender, just say, look, I don't know how to fix this. What I'm saying seems fearful, or it seems like I'm guilty. And we ask for help. So we're asking for that little bit of help. And we move into the I don't know mind, which is beautiful. And in fact, if you move into the I don't know mind, just stay there. That's the mind. That's actually the abstract mind of God, when you don't know, because then God can reach you. And when I say the I don't know mind, it's that I don't know anything. And it's a surrendering of what you think you do know. And it can seem quite fearful, because the ego can come in and say, well, if you don't know, something bad will happen. You have to know. And the ego's mantra is seek and do not find. So we're sort of caught between this, we're caught between listening to the ego, which is seek and do not find. So we're going to a thought system that doesn't know anything but thinks it does, and it keeps the idea out of awareness that it doesn't know. But I know if you've ever felt that uncomfortable feeling, I mean, that's why we feel so, we don't feel good when we're in our ego, because we're sitting in a place where we're trusting a thought system that can't help us, and it's a loop. So we're saying, look, I don't know what to do, and then we're asking a thought system that doesn't know either. So when we come to God, we come to God with empty hands, and when we come to God with empty hands, that's the I don't know mind. It's coming to God without any idea about how to fix ourselves. And it's really that surrendering. And it's a place where we sort of come really on our knees. And that's when God can enter our mind and can tell us how much we are loved, and how gorgeous we are, and how guiltless we are, and how sinless we are. And God can show us our holiness. And this is what God does. And what happens is God is the same. He's changeless and eternal. And so the God part, the God essence of everyone here, everything, every single thing is God, and the God essence is innocence. So let me get on with the manual for teachers, because I get off and talk about just how often talk about lots of different things, but nothing's ever going wrong. So whatever's coming in my mind, I feel to share. So really what my message is, if you've got any fear, just ask the Holy Spirit. And the other thing is, it may take time. It may take weeks for you to feel the answer coming in. And you may have to feel uncomfortable for a couple of weeks, but it will come. It will come. The answer will come. and it'll come in quietness. And before you know it, you'll have an answer. And something will come through that helps you. And the more you join with God and you more surrender the way you think, the more surrender your perception, the quicker the answer comes. And before long, you'll find that you're living more in this peace and more in this love and more in this tranquil mind. And you'll be looking adoringly at the holiness of everything around you. So we're up to number, what did we get to? We got to tolerance, number 3 of the characteristics of God's teachers in the Course in Miracles. So we talked about tolerance last week, and now my favourite one besides trust is gentleness. And the reason why it's my favourite one is because I remember when I was younger, a child, I always loved gentle people, but I wasn't very gentle myself. It wasn't like I was a destructive child or anything like that. I just didn't feel gentle. But I was very, very attracted to anyone that had a very gentle voice, or anyone that, remember one of my, when I was at primary school, I was at a Catholic primary school and I was asked to go up to deliver a message to the principal. And when I walked in there, she said, no, I don't want to hear the message until you've come over by the heater and warmed your hands up. And as I walked in there, she got my hands and she put her hands over my hands. It was a winter's day and she held them and she warmed my hands up and she put out both her hands by the heater. And that memory, that simple memory, has stuck with me. And I'm 54 now, and I probably was about 6 or 7. I know I was very young, the first years. And I was quite scared of the principal, and I didn't really want to go and knock on her door. I was extremely shy as a child. She was so loving, so beautiful and so gentle and so kind. And in that moment, I felt my heart open. And I thought, there's such beautiful people in this world. There's people that are very, very kind. My mother was kind, but she had 6 children. She was very, very busy. And she looked after us practically. But there was never any gentleness. You'd never sit on her knee. And she'd never cuddle you and maybe touch you or just rub your hand or something and just tell you how much she loved you. I felt loved by my mother, but it was more of a practical manner. And there's not to say that that's beautiful, because my mum is a very practical person and she shows her love through those things. And she's got older, she's got more loving. And there's possibility she's got more loving is because I've got more loving towards her. Excuse me. So gentleness. So that I've got a couple of memories where I've met people and they've had just this very, very gentle nature. And I have been so attracted to it, just so wanting to be with those people, just be around them, which isn't always possible because sometimes you meet people and they're not someone that you can be around. I was in Al-Anon for 10 years, which is a 12-step program for family and friends of alcoholics. And I had a sponsor earlier on and she had this gentle way. As soon as I heard her talk one day, I went, right, that's my sponsor. And I just wanted to be around her. I didn't care what she said. I just wanted to listen to her and feel her gentle presence. At that stage, you know, I'd been beaten up by ex-partners. I'd had a lot of violence, and this gentleness. And someone's H. Celia said, I too remember acts of kindness during my childhood over 55 years ago. Oh, and isn't that funny? You know, this is beautiful that this is why it's so important. Jesus says in his course about, he gives a couple of little examples about a child running into someone's leg and bumping them. And in that moment, they join together. And so the person doesn't get angry, just smiles at the child. And I think this is what he's talking about, these tiny, tiny little acts of gentleness and kindness. And H. Seeley, who's written in, has just said, they have stayed with me long after acts of violence have been forgotten. Me too. Definitely. I'm sitting here thinking of them right now. So I'm joining you that those little tiny acts of kindness, acts of gentleness have stayed with me. And I've been beaten up, nearly put in hospital, and that's forgotten. So this gentleness, that's why it's my favourite part of one of the characteristics, because I now believe I've got gentleness. I believe that God works through me in gentleness. And I am, especially when I'm around children, I am very, very aware to be this loving gentleness of God, to just be the presence of love, and to not even be aware that I'm doing it, to make it the natural way. And this principal of my school, she would not have thought probably anything of a little girl turning up at her office asking, to give her a note from the teacher. And for her, in her day, just to grab my hands and say, no, I'm not reading this note until your hands are warmed up, and touching my hands and this gentleness and this beautiful smile and this care. I felt that it was important to her that I had warm hands. And that was just the most touching part that I remember. And I think, I can't even remember her face. I just remember her gentleness. And of all of primary school, there's a few memories, but that's one of them. And so we're reminded that we don't have to go and save the world. We just need to be this presence of gentleness. We need to be this presence of love. We need to just be always open to lose the self, to lose the constant idea that, no, there's a me and it needs things. Everything's provided. I mean, if I look around now, if you're sitting with me, listening to me, just look around. Have you got everything? Have you got some food? Have you got a bed to sleep in? Have you got clothes on your back? We've got everything. There's so little we need. You could wrap yourself in a blanket. You could sleep in a car. You could go and find a tree with some fruit on it and have some food. There's so much around. There's so little that we need to be in this world. And everything else is just extras. They're not important. Truly, I've seen this. I used to be very materialistic. And now I live very, very lightly and simply, and it's just the most joyful way. So, gentleness, Harm is impossible for God's teacher. So gentleness includes harmlessness. They can neither harm nor be harmed. Harm is the outcome of judgment. It is the dishonest act that follows a dishonest thought. It is a verdict of guilt upon a brother and therefore on oneself. It is the end of peace and the denial of learning. It demonstrates the absence of God's curriculum and its replacement by insanity. No teacher of God but must learn, and fairly early in his training, that harmfulness completely obliterates his function from his awareness. It will make him confused, fearful, angry and suspicious. It will make the Holy Spirit's lesson impossible to learn. Nor can God's teacher be heard at all except by those who realise that harm can actually achieve nothing. No gain can come of it. Therefore, God's teachers are wholly gentle. They need the strength of gentleness, for it is in this that the function of salvation becomes easy. And I'll just leave that there, but I think we get the gist of what he's telling us here about the strength of gentleness. And, you know, there's, I know HCLE, he or she, whoever it is, has had a memory, and maybe when you're listening to this, you might think back to a memory where someone's been really gentle. Hal, nice to see you again. So Hal, yes, anyone else that's listening, you know, think of the times where someone has been very, very gentle and kind to you, and think of how you felt. And then think about how you can be that gentleness. And that gentleness will be a natural part of who you are. Safe and loved. Safe and loved, yes. Safe and loved. Beautiful. So we need to undo the blocks to gentleness. Gentleness will be our natural state when we don't judge. He said here, you know, harm is the outcome of judgment. So if I'm judging anything, I'm going to, in some regard, harm it. So the next characteristic is joy. Joy is the inevitable result of gentleness. So as you undo the blocks, you have the miracles. You're shifting from fear to love in your mind. Your mind's opening. You're becoming more loving, more giving. You realise that as you give love, you get to keep it. You're giving love. So you're getting filled up with this love, and you become more gentle. And what's the result? It's joy. Gentleness means that fear is now impossible, and what would come to interfere with joy? The open hands of gentleness are always filled. The gentle have no pain. They cannot suffer. Why would they not be joyous? They are sure they are beloved and must be safe. And that's what you said, Hal. Safe and loved. And that's what it says here. They are sure they are beloved and must be safe. Joy goes with gentleness as surely as grief attends attack. God's teachers trust in him, and they are sure his teachers go before them, making sure no harm can come to them. They hold his gifts and follow in his way, because God's voice directs them in all things. Joy is their song of thanks. And that's something that I often feel like I'm in a song of joy. It's sort of gentleness, joy, gratitude and love. They sort of all join together to become like a song. And Christ looks down on them in thanks as well. His need of them is just as great as theirs of him. How joyous it is to share the purpose of salvation. And I sometimes put the word enlightenment instead of the word salvation. So how joyous is it is to share the purpose of enlightenment. And enlightenment is just being in the light, being this light, being this love. That's it. It's just feeling this love and light of God. So I'm just going to move my book back here so I can read it a bit easier. Number 6, defencelessness. This is my favourite practice. I think I've done a presentation on in my defencelessness, my safety lies, and we're talking about being safe and love. And yeah, it's funny to think the ego thinks if it defends itself, it's safe, whereas Jesus is saying, be defenceless. You're going to be really safe. And he goes, oh no, you've got to defend yourself or you'll get attacked. So this one's a hard one to practice and it takes a lot of trust, but it works when you get a little inkling of it, when you become really defenceless. You don't defend an opinion, don't defend anything, don't defend a stance at all. And that's what goes back to what I was talking before about the I don't know, because if you don't know, how are you going to defend an opinion or defend anything? So God's teachers have learned how to be simple. That's it. Things become very simple and uncomplicated and very easy. They have no dreams that need defence against the truth. They do not try to make themselves. So when he says they do not need to make themselves, he's talking about when we're not trying to make an ego, or we're not trying to make ourselves real, I suppose, through thinking that we're a separate, that we need to defend a separate thing here. He's telling us that we're spirit and spirit can't be threatened, and spirit is everything, everywhere, so we're part of that. Their joy comes from their understanding who created them. And does what God created need defence? No one can become an advanced teacher of God until he fully understands that defences are but foolish guardians of mad illusions. It doesn't mince words, does he? Mad illusions. I'm a mad illusion that I'm limited to this body. I might be coming through, the Christ Spirit might be coming through this body at this moment, but I'm not this body. Who I am is mind. I'm not something that can be found or touched, but I can speak through and use this body to speak through. The dream of separation is gone. And he's asking us to be defenceless so that we can wake up from this dream of separation, this dream that we're attached, that we're this little body living in a little world of bodies, and that's all there is. So he's saying one of these practices, which is defencelessness, is such an important practice. Oh, Hal said, just this morning I came to realise how much I was defending myself against an illusory thought of mine. It was very joyful letting that defensiveness depart my life. You see, these are the miracles. When Hal's written, he realised something. And that's all that's happening. We become more and more aware of how we're defending. And that's just this path is just, oh, look, here I am defending this. Well, now how am I meant to drop the defensiveness is I've got to become aware of it at first. I've got to become aware of what opinions I'm holding. What am I defending? Every time you want to justify yourself, explain yourself, holding a point of view about something, it's a fantastic practice to just go a day where you don't defend anything. Just zip your mouth. Just zip it and just watch. Just go, oh, look, I really want to defend that, but just don't. And then you just drop it. And then it become more and more aware of how good it feels when you don't have to defend anything. And that marries in with one of his other lessons, just let everything be as it is. Oh, it's so joyful to just let everything be as it is. It can just be. And then me, what I'm doing is I'm just being a presence of God's love in everywhere I go. And even if I'm not meeting anyone during the day and I just have a day at home, my loving thoughts are going out. They're just going out. He says all thoughts are creating form. He just says so many times, your thoughts are powerful. Please don't think they're not powerful. They're extremely powerful. So let's finish off on defencelessness. The more grotesque the dream, the fiercer and more powerful its defences seem to be. Yet when the teacher of God finally agrees to look past them, he finds that nothing was there. Slowly at first he lets himself be undeceived, but he learns faster as his trust increases. It is not danger that comes when defences are laid down, it is safety. So the ego is going to tell you if you don't defend yourself, you'll be in all sorts of strife, whatever. It's got lots of stories. Your stories will probably be different to the ego stories, but they're pretty much the same in that the ego wants to be held in place, and it'll bring you lots of reasons why you should defend particular stances. But it's safety, it is peace, it is joy, and it is God. So God doesn't need defending, and he's asking us to trust in this teaching, to practice defencelessness until it becomes your way of life, until it becomes who you are, it becomes part of everything you do. You go around, you're in your day completely defensive, and it is natural. You don't need to practice it anymore. It is a natural way of being. The next one is number 7, generosity. The term generosity has a special meaning to the teacher of God. It is not the usual meaning of the word. In fact, it is a meaning that must be learned, and learned very carefully. Like all the other attributes of God's teachers, this one rests ultimately on trust, for without trust no one can be generous in the true sense. Now this one's a really important one, and I might not rush through and try to get all these finished today. Maybe I'll finish maybe I'll do another one next week and finish up, because I think this is a really important one. I know it was for me to really understand what this generosity, when we're a teacher of God, and he says it's got a special meaning. So it's not, the world would see generosity as giving away your money, and maybe being generous with your time. They're all lovely things, but he's really talking about something a lot more than that. So I'll read through it and I'll try to put some comments in as I move through. It is not the usual meaning of the word. In fact, it is a meaning that must be learned, and learned very carefully. Like all the other attributes of God's teachers, This one rests ultimately on trust. For without trust, no one can be generous in the true sense. Okay, so what this is pointing to is if you have 100% trust in God, you could give away everything. You could give away your house, you could give away all your money, you could give every single thing you own away. And you could trust in God to provide. So generosity in the world's ways would be, you know, we might look at somebody that's quite wealthy and who's the guy that owns Microsoft? I can't remember his name, but him and his wife do a lot of work and he's very generous and that's beautiful. He's probably got a very open heart of love, I would say. But would he give everything away and trust God? So this is the difference between, not that God's going to ask you to give everything away, but you have to be prepared to. So what he's saying is this generosity means that you will do what you're asked to do. So if the Holy Spirit asks you to give something away, which is some money or something, you have to give it and you rely on trust. So what he's asking you to do is to be generous without worrying about that you've got enough left for the future. And this is a huge one, and it was for me. It was one of the biggest lessons. Defenselessness, I could practice that. I could do that. I could see the results of it. To actually trust the Holy Spirit with my finances, that was, there's no hierarchy of illusions, but that seemed at the time to be a bigger one. So I'll just keep reading. To the world, generosity means giving away in the sense of giving up. To the teachers of God, it means giving away in order to keep. This has been emphasised throughout the text in the workbook, but it is perhaps more alien to the thinking of the world than many other ideas in a curriculum. Its greatest strangeness lies merely in the obviousness of its reversal of the world's thinking. In the clearest way possible, and at the simplest of forms, the word means the exact opposite to the teacher of God and to the world. The teacher of God is generous out of self-interest, and self is a capital S. This does not refer, however, to the self of which the world speaks. The teacher of God does not want anything he cannot give away, because he realises it would be valueless to him by definition. What would he want it for? So I'm just going to tell a little story here about what I was asked to do on my journey in A Course in Miracles, working with this. I've got a couple of really beautiful things Holy Spirit want me to do, but one of them was I had, for the first time in a long time, about 3 or 4 years ago, when I was really practicing Course in Miracles, very, very, really joined with Holy Spirit, that okay, I want this awakening. I was going through lots of different changes, and I'd saved up some money. I had a friend living with me, and she was paying half the rent and half the bills. And for the first time in a long time, I started to save some money up. And I thought, oh, I could probably go on a trip overseas somewhere. And I saved $4,000. I was working in a job that paid well. And I'd never really had been able to save before. I'd always, had a lot of debt and things like that. But coming to the course, I think I simplified my life, and I wasn't really buying many things. So I was starting to save some money. And a friend on Facebook, I'd never met him. He was in America. And I talked to him a few times on my journey and asked him some questions. He'd been studying the course and he seemed very happy. And I asked him if he, a little bit about what he'd done and how he'd done it. And I used to do that a lot because I like anyone that I saw that had done the course and was very happy, I'd be interested in. And I thought, okay, I can learn from this person. And so he put up on Facebook that he was going to start a small business and he needed money. And did anyone feel to donate? And straight away, the Holy Spirit said, give him your $4,000. And I went, great. Okay, so I messaged him and I said, I'll give you this money for your business. And he said, would you like it to be a loan? I can pay it back. And I said, no, I feel to give it to you. Now, that was the first time I think I've ever had $4,000 in the bank. I just gave it to him. And it was beautiful. I felt so much joy in being to give away that money. And I got the benefit. That's why he says here, giving and receiving are the same. Like, and what did I want that money for? I started to think, what do I want to go around the world for? What do I want to look at churches? What do I want to see? And I started to see that I could go down the road and see a church, or I could fly to England and see a church. I was looking at bricks. I was looking at mud. And I was saying, oh, look at that brick. How special is that? And my mind started getting washed out, that everything was the same, that the house that I lived in was made of bricks. And there was nothing I needed to see anywhere, and all the reasons why I would want to go overseas just all fell away. I didn't need to see anything. It was the same everywhere. There's trees. Anyway, so I gave the money quietly, and I didn't tell anyone. And this is the first time I've actually spoken about this, and it was at least 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Anyway, I had another friend on Facebook that we'd been messaging, and he lived in America as well, and he was lovely, and he was writing poems, and I used to be very joyful and loved his poems and things, and always would comment and tell him how much I loved him. I got to the stage where I was just telling everyone on Facebook how much I loved them, and it was this outpouring of love, and it was really beautiful. And then about 6 months later, this other friend came back to me, and he messaged me and he said, Cate, I had met up with the first guy that I'd given the money to, and he said, and I'd gone to him and I had started working for him in his business. And he said, and then we were out one day and I asked him about how he started up the business. And then he said, oh, it wouldn't have started unless this woman in Australia had given me some money. And then he told the second friend that it was me. And he was just like, wow. He said, I've got a job because you gave someone else some money. And he was so joyful. And I thought, wow, all these connecting dots I wasn't expecting. And I just said, look, I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy that someone has got something out of this. And I'm not sharing this for any other reason, just to say you just don't know where the miracle's going to go and who's going to be affected by your kindness, and whether it's time, whether you give some time to someone, and it can be in the smallest things. But that was really lovely. Like, I got a real kick out of the second person coming back, and I didn't even know that they knew each other on Facebook. And I think they just started a friendship. And then, anyway, it doesn't matter how it happened because I don't really know how they got to meet up and why they got together, but they did. And he just said to me, yeah, if you hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have an income now, Kate. So thank you so much. So Jesus talks in the Course in Miracles about what is the purpose, everything you do, what is its purpose? And this is a very, very good question. What is it for? Why am I doing this? You know, if I buy something expensive, what is it for? Is it to adorn the body and make the body look more beautiful? To what? Get more eyes looking at it? Oh, that's just the ego, I'm sorry. So what happens is, and there's nothing wrong with buying something nice if you feel that you want to buy something nice. There's nothing wrong with anything. It's just if you do it with the Holy Spirit or do it with the ego. Yeah, and there's no guilt in it. If you've done something, don't feel guilty because anything that's happened is gone. Where is it now? Anything you've done in the past, where is it now? It's only a memory. And if you never bring it back into your consciousness, it's not here. So that's why we can step into God's love now, completely awake to God's love now. Because unless you're bringing a memory into your awareness, it's not here. And if you're thinking about the future, that's not here either. And they are illusions. That's the dream. The dream is anything except the present moment of God, God here now in everything. And when you're looking at it, everything, it's just God. It's God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. And so it's 2 minutes to the hour. And I love to read a little prayer. So I'll go through the rest. I've got patience, 3 more to go. So I'll do those next week. And just wanted to say how grateful I am for this opportunity to speak here on Awakening Together, and grateful for Regina and Dave Fishman and all the people, and Jacqueline and Ken. Deeply grateful for anybody that donates their time. You see, this is people are doing God's work. They're giving. Oh, and thank you, Regina. Grateful for you. So I'll just read a little prayer, of course. Here. I will not fear to look within today. Within me is eternal innocence. Oh, we're all eternal innocent. That's what we are. So this is Jesus telling us how eternally innocent we are. Within me is eternal innocence because it is God's will that it be there forever and forever. I, his son, whose will is limitless as his own, can will no change in this. I'm just going to read those 2 lines because they're just perfect. Even the first line was beautiful. Just our eternal innocence, and that's what we are. So blessings, thank you for being with me today. And I'm off to a funeral now, so I can't wait and listen to the next session. But thank you so much for being here. And I love you, I bless you, and I honour you for your beautiful selves, your true selves. And I'll hand the mic back to Regina. And thanks everyone for being with me. Blessings of love, and I'm ending this meeting now, this video, and God bless you. Bye-bye.